you participated personally in the protests. At this point, you were a joint Georgian-U.S. citizen. Uh, what drove you to take to the streets, and tell us what happened?
I have I've always been kind of a civic activist, you know. I mean, when I worked on Capitol Hill in the 1980s, I used to participate in marches and demonstrations in Washington D.C. In Georgia, I did not participate in any protest movements or political movements until I became a citizen, which I think was in 2017 or 2018. Um, I had a view of Georgia that there had always been challenges to democracy and rule of law in Georgia from the time I got there in 94. I mean, it was non existent in 94. But under Shevardnadze, under Saakashvili, especially under Saakashvili, there were major challenges to rule of law. And I always fought against those behind closed doors because I wasn't a Georgian citizen. I was a practicing lawyer with clients. I didn't want to alienate the government. But I was on the board of AmCham, and I was often State Department officials under the W. Bush administration, the Clinton administration, the Obama administration. I was the person that they would talk to. So I always sort of advocated for holding the line on Georgia's democracy and on Georgia's rule of law. Once I became a citizen and I sort of went part-time as a law firm lawyer and it was no longer like everything I did would reflect on the law firm because I became enough counsel. I was part-time. I took a lower profile role on purpose so I could be more involved in social and environmental things in Georgia. I came out for pretty much any demonstration. I came out for many of them in 2019, 2020 that were protesting undemocratic actions by the Georgian government. So this was routine for me, actually, to come out to just, and I felt that it mattered because the Georgia that I had grown up in was a Georgia where when people protested, Shevardnadze reacted. Saakashvili, reacted, sometimes violently, but they cared. They cared about protests. They cared about what the West thought. They cared about their human rights image, even if they had problems with it. And when I started coming out for the demonstrations in the spring of 2024, those were the most aggressive, some of the most aggressive demonstrations one had ever seen in Georgia, in the sense that people were shooting fireworks at the parliament and people were really sort of pushing the edge with the cops, remaining nonviolent themselves. I mean, but it was very tough. And when I was shouting names at the cops and calling them slaves and Russians and traitors, and a group of them ran at me from 30 or 40 yards away and attacked me, I was like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. They're not supposed to come out and grab me because I was yelling at them. I didn't physically confront them or anything like that. And so it was an interesting, I had an understanding that one could peacefully protest in Georgia, and that understanding was, I was disabused of that understanding in April, May 2024 when I was grabbed and beaten up. But I've always been a person who believes that we must stand up for our rights and our democracy when they're under attack. I'm sitting here in Atlanta right now. I was in Atlanta for the first No Kings March last April. And I do the same thing here. In fact, I feel like it's even more important to do it here in the United States now.